Welcome to BreitWerks. Everybody thinks working on Porsches, they're like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah, but what they don't see is the dirty part of it. So this is the non-glamorous, clean the engine before you can do too much. So you see her sister half sitting out there in the sun, drying. But what we're trying to do here is get the inside as clean as possible. The outside we're doing a good degreasing, but she's going to get a little trip to the machine shop and we're going to have her tumbled. So it'll come back looking absolutely amazing. But as far as the inside, that's our job, to make sure that that's really clean before it goes to the machine shop and after. So soap, brushes, razor blades, a little degreaser, and a pressure washer. That is the less glamorous part of doing all this. But this is a 7R case, so it's got all the extra webbing in the back. This is the case that all the racers want. Mag case. There are not too many out there. We only found one little spot. Looks like that might have been where either that chain guide or something. But we know at one point in its life, 30 years ago, rocker shaft popped out, so it needed to at least have a top end. But yeah, she's shaping up. Get her cleaned up, sent off, and this is the documentary of Persephone, 1974. There you can see the 7R 911S. So on the cleaning side, all of this stuff has to get cleaned up like brand new. So we'll deal with the pistons and take the oil pump apart, and then to check the viability of reusing the valves, cleaned one up, but you can see all of that stuff has to get taken care of. But always the long pole in the tent is the case. So you saw earlier we got the case cleaned, now we got her packed. And then the rockers and the rods both get degreased so that we can inspect them. And then we really clean them. So these are going to go get new bushes and big ends checked. But yeah, these rods are ready to go. And then the rockers get the exact same treatment. So yeah, the cleaning part. We'll show you some done stuff in the next segment. All right, so speaking of cleaning things, what we're going to do now is put this oil pump back together now that we've completely taken it apart, stripped it, cleaned it. And yes, it's magnesium, so that is as clean as that little sucker's going to get. That mottled finish is normal. So now what we got to do is, first things first, put the drive shaft in with the drive pin. So get that guy in there, and we've put a little bit of assembly lube, assembly grease on there, just so when we're cranking the motor over to set the valves and all that stuff, everything's good. Now what we've done, because we want to put everything exactly back where we found it, right? So what we've done is I've put a little hole, center punch there to know that this was my last gear facing me, right? And I know that the ones that came with the factory center punch were also facing me. So we're just gonna put a little bit of assembly lube, assembly grease, I think is what they refer to it as. Put some on the shaft here too, so everything slides on nice and easily. A little bit of wear there, nothing amazing. And on the running surface. So just putting some assembly grease on there so that we don't hurt anything. All right, so one dot. This guy only goes on one way because he's got to slide over that bar. So slide him down nice and tight. All right, and everything spins the way it should. There's no binding. Get it tight. All right, now this guy has a second hole punch on him, or a center punch, so we know he goes in there. put a little bit of assembly lube on that. And slide that guy on with the 2 dots out. Okay, so this guy is now sliding nicely. Okay, now we're going to take this side of the cartridge and put a little bit of assembly grease there. And here we know, because we put 2 punches here, we got 1 punch there, so we know how those guys fit together. So put some assembly lube on there. And I would say that's probably the most stressful part, first couple times doing this, is figuring out, okay, where did these gears come from? How do they go back together? But after you've done it a bunch of times, kind of not a huge deal. All right, you won't really be able to see it, but I've got my hole punch, my center punch is all lined up there. So we're good on this side. Now on this side, I also center punched because we've got the 1 dot there. So we know that the 1 dot is going to go between these 2 center punches that we made down here. Double check that. So we'll lube that up just a touch. Just don't want to hurt anything while we're not actually pumping oil through the engine. All right, so I got my 2 dots, and then got my 1 dot, right? Oh, that's the double dot, so that one goes all the way out. This one goes in. Yes, finicky, I know. Okay, so now we got 2 dots lined up on that side, we got the dots lined up on this side, and we'll go to put our last one on here, and he is going to slide in like that. So now the rotor pack is absolutely back exactly where we took her out. So put a little bit more grease on this stuff. I used to hear stories of people packing these things with Vaseline and all that. Turn the motor over by hand, a couple revolutions, you'll immediately have oil pressure. Okay, so just double check that everybody's lined up. So we turn this little guy all the way around. Boom, so that's exactly how it came out. Boom, that's exactly how it came out. Now the rest of it is just kind of making the steel plate here fit over these pins. So we're going to go in this way, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach down in there with my finger and put some assembly grease on the running surfaces down there. Once this guy's making 30 psi oil pressure, this stuff is not a problem whatsoever. Okay, so we know the drive shaft comes out the top, right? So I'll slide this guy in. Actually, put a little lube on the pins here. Just thinking about it. Oops, had it, then I lost it. There we go. Okay, so the drive shaft came through the way it's supposed to. And now we'll have to resort to a little bit of effort here. So, brass tipped hammer. What's holding us up is the locating pins. You see, I'm just using very gentle taps, so it takes a little while, but it's because it's all magnesium, right? So you don't want to crack anything. Okay, so we got our steel plate on there. Our holes are still lining up. Little drive shaft doohickey. Everything is spinning nice and smooth so far. We haven't put the back plate on yet, so we're not going to make that call just yet. What we are going to do though is put the little holder back on here. It's just a little C-clip. Basically keeps the drive shaft from going too far. And get that guy locked in. Nice. Okay. The last step now is to take our back cover and slide that guy on. Oops, there we go. And before we do that, put a little assembly grease on the running surface, a little extra in those reservoirs, if you will, down the bottom. And this is our last chance to kind of put a little bit on the gears. All right, now this guy goes in. We know that the circle here goes up, so that's all of the different location stuff. As you take it apart, make sure you look at all of those little things. This one usually goes on just by hand. Okay. Wavy washers, M6 nuts, and we'll draw this guy together very, very gently. I'm going caddy corner here so that we don't warp the case. That will make it not want to spin nicely. It's drawing up the way we would hope. Okay, and still spins. Put the other two on there. And then we will torque these guys to 10 Newton meters. Little M6 hardware, 10 Newton meters. Probably do that part off camera. But get everything hand snugged up. And there you have it, a completed oil pump. Where did I put his little drive shaft? Anyway, we'll get the drive shaft, make sure everything spins. Feels good so far. So we got that going for us. And there you have it. This is a Gen 1 mag. Single stage. Actually, I guess it's considered a double stage because you got suction and pressure coming here. But this is the early oil pump. Like I said, if we saw anything at all in there, we would replace this, most likely with a Carrera pump or something along those lines. All right, so everything was cleaned up on the oil pump, and we'll go find the next part that needs to be ready to get reassembled. So while we're on the topic of cleaning, here's these three heads are done. This guy went through bead blast, but he hasn't gone through the finishing wash. You can tell the difference there, the way that the aluminum darkens up a little bit. And then this guy's about to go in the blast cabinet, and then that'll be our last one. So they go through a degreasing cycle, get all the grease off of them, and then I get the hard carbon off. Makes it a little easier in the blast cabinet. Then they come out of the blast cabinet, and then this is what they look like when they head off to the machine shop. So 3 heads done, 1 almost done, and 2 to go. All right, we'll check in with you on the pistons. All right, so while we're on the topic of cleaning, what you're looking at here is the cam rack. It's been bead blasted, so it's all cleaned up. It's gone through 1 ultrasonic cleaning. It'll go through 1 more. But before we do that final cleaning on the ultrasonic machine, one of the things I like to do is use a cleaning tap and a cleaning die and just hit all the studs and hit all the holes. And you know, somebody might say, oh, well, you know what, that's not a critical fastener. It just holds on the sheet metal. Yeah, you're right. Until you've got the engine assembled, you're going to put the sheet metal on and the bolt won't go in the hole. And now you're here trying to put a time cert in while you've got an assembled engine, and you're trying to make sure that your drill stop won't let you go through the back boss and all that kind of stuff. So it's just easier to do this type of stuff while everything's in the component phase, right? So even these studs on the intake side, you know, just cleaning up the threads, so that way when we go to put the valve covers on, you know, you're not fighting with dirty threads, and therefore trying to figure out, hey, did I really get the 7.5 Newton meters? I'm sorry, 10 Newton meters of torque on there, or was it because the nut was binding up on a dirty or rusty stud? So just a couple of things to keep in mind. These, we don't go hard at these. We just kind of get them really nice and clean. The surfaces that you're worried about on the cam racks are where the heads will bolt up, because you're going to put 574 there to keep any oil from leaking. Where the, let's see, this side, yeah. So this is the 4 through 6 side. So we don't have an oil pump on the back, but we will have where the camshaft comes through, and you'll have a paper gasket that goes there. So you want to make sure that those sealing surfaces are as clean and as flat as possible. But in addition to just that type of stuff, going through, making sure that each one of your holes, you've got the top engine shroud gets attached up here, your side tins get attached here, and your cam gets bolted up there. So just kind of taking that step going through. Doesn't sound like a big deal, and it's not until one of those holes isn't doing what it's supposed to do when you're in the middle of putting everything back together. So it's just an extra step, precautionary, makes life easier on assembly. All right, so those are the cam racks. All right, so we're cleaning up the chain boxes. We've got one of them done, all cleaned up. And these are mag, super light. Gotta be careful with them. So once this guy goes through one more round of ultrasonic cleaning, we'll coat it with Bow Shield and set it off to the side, let it age. Here's one that's prepped, it's been degreased. Everything's taped up, but we'll get all that stuff out of there. But yeah, this guy had a lot of silicone. Pretty much all the stuff was covered with silicone, so had to get that out, because yes, it works for the first week, but after that it doesn't work too well. And then last but not least, the pistons. Key here is get the ring lands clean. I don't really hit the skirts with a bead blaster. I kind of leave those alone, but get the piston crown, get all the carbon off of it, and yeah. So those are all the major components that have to get cleaned. So our process is degrease it, bead blast it, give it a couple ultrasonic baths, and you end up with very nice clean parts for assembly. All right, well, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed the overview on all the different cleaning aspects of a 911 engine, 1974 911S. So all magnesium stuff instead of aluminum. Kind of neat, but very cool. All right, we'll keep you up to date on the project. Thanks for watching. Check us out at BreitWerks.com.